Hello and good evening. Today we're going to be going over the Touch-PiShock version 3.2.1. We're going to be mostly focusing over the visual edition. The core edition is basically the same thing, it just doesn't have the fancy color effects for the status modes. More of that we will be going over later. So the basic install is just a simple drag and drop of the Touch-PiShock. However, it is recommended to have the Lolotron's model installed, which when you download it should be listed as, and I'm having to scroll through here to find it, it will show up as your download as a PiShock Unity section.unity package. It will be the top listed download on the page at this time, as Lolotron is moving off of Gumroad to other store locations. At this time, you're just going to be needing Lolotron's model. Any other model will work. More on how to replace that or install your own model. Your focus is mainly the bubble around the prop. The size of said bubble will vary depending on your use and your friend's own hands. I recommend bubble being bigger, but again, more of that later. Other than that, we will drag in the Touch-PiShock, which I have already imported. Takes a quick moment. Listed as the Touch-PiShock Visual Liger XT5. It is recommended that if you already have this installed on your Unity project, to delete it when you go to update. 9 times out of 10, the prefab will line itself up with the current newest one. If you have made any adjustments, you will have to kind of play it by ear, but I'd be happy to work with anybody needing some assistance. So, selecting onto the folder, we will have the selection of various prefabs of VRC Fury. We will start with the installation of the menu. We can either go with clockwise or counterclockwise. The only real difference is the arrangement of the menu options. Some people have some OCD where they like it clockwise or counterclockwise. If you're using multiple PiShocks, you probably want it to start clockwise 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Otherwise, you could probably have it the other way. All your personal preference. In this case, I'm going to do counterclockwise, and I'm going to drag it right onto my avatar. That way it's at the root of my avatar. It doesn't need to be moved or anything. It just manages the menus, controls the arrangement for when you have multiple PiShocks, and it will even adjust based on which ones you have in there. So even if they are listed in there, they're not going to affect if they're not actually imported on the avatar. We're going to just manage with one PiShock, which only manages, the only real difference is the menu. We're going to put it on the armature, break it down to the arm, and we are going to need to resize this guy. So 0.005, I believe, is the preference here. We'll bring it up, and we will need to make an arrangement. Everybody has their preference. And I know this looks like it's kind of on the back side. On my use case, when I go in, it kind of rotates on its own just a bit. There we go. As you can tell on the visual edition, there is a red light. The light will turn itself off. I call it a light. It's more just a texture emission. That's just kind of how can I give you something to better see in the world lighting. You can select onto this and expand this down to make adjustments. This is where I was mentioning about replacing the prop. So let's say we don't want Lolotron's props in here. We can delete PiShock. You can drag whatever else you want inside. If you want to go back up to, I do believe it's clicking on this one and down to contact receiver, you can adjust the size of it. So let's say I want to go 8 or even a whole solid 0.1 to make it bigger or smaller. At this point, I will just leave it as is for this use case. If you do not wish to have the space around there to kind of bring it a little closer in, you can preview it just by turning that off, get a good view. There is a strap that comes with Lolotron's prop inside the folder here. That is going to be more on your Unity and Blender skill set, mostly on the Blender if I had to presume. Not my skill set, your choice. The prop choice is yours. In this case, I have it pretty well in place. I'm going to go into Gesture Manager and hit play. Auto fix. And by default, the PiShock is no longer listed. It will turn itself off by default. We will go over here into PiShock. This is where the intensity controls are to set it to what you want it. Same way duration. Be cautious on this. Do some trial and error. Learn it on your own. Even though this is in percentages, each percent is not a second. It is a percentage of your max value of time. So in VRCOSC's module for PiShock, if you have it set to a maximum of 3 seconds, that is a 100% at 3 seconds. If I had to guess, 66 would probably put it at 2 seconds, 33 at 1 second, so on. Intensity is basically the same way. If your max intensity in VRCOSC is, say, 75%, 100 here would be 75%. I'm not doing the math, but you can get the idea. 50% be half of 75. We have the enable to bring it on screen. We have the blinker to control its blinking status. I have the prop upside down, not intentional, my mistake, but you got the idea. As you can tell, it is blinking blue. If I switch it into shock, which is on, and this will come into new lines, so this will be two lines of text in game, it will be blinking, as you've seen, green. You can change these in the Poyomi material shader, this as your preference. 10-second cooldown, so that way when someone hits it, it will flash red, stay red for 10 seconds, and as it gets closer to 10 seconds, it will begin to fade. Any second. There you go. And there's your status. And that's all. Upload, run with it. VRCOSC module, PiShock modules variables are the defaults in here. You shouldn't have to make any changes. If you wish to make some changes, all you have to do is go into the visual menus, find the menu that you're working with. Solo is going to be just 0, 0. And in this case, let's say you want the PiShock to be on by default. I would have that as default. Where are you? Oh, right. I forgot that it would be running under VRC Fury, under the toggle. If you edit and change the options, you can have it saved between worlds as well as default on. And then exit the module from here, or prefab there. Anything else, like your default shock, would be under the Visual Global Files. Nope, parameters here, excuse me. This is where you would change it. If you want it to be defaulting to 25%, not on the duration, of course not. Intensity, I meant. So you wanted to default to 25% whenever the avatar is reset to default for per se, or the first time you get in, it will be that way. You do not have to worry about sync because everything's being done on your side. The only thing that is synchronizing is your visual or your computer local rendering of them touching your PiShock. So even if, let's say, they're over in Japan and they touch, but yet you have already began running in a direction, if your computer side does not see that the avatar had been touched, even though you're not visually seeing it yourself, it will not render. So there is a little bit of latency you have to worry about. You can customize that again in the parameters and touch. I already have it synced. You can uncheck it if you want to save some parameters. I would not uncheck the syncs of anything else because that will affect the visual edition and people will not see them blinking and so on. Cannot say the blinking statuses are in sync, but the red is reasonably close, if not exact. If you're needing any more assistance, I do have a Discord available. The link is on my Gumroad. I also have my store listing showing up on other store locations. You're welcome to locate me. Anything else, just find me on Discord as LigerXT5, in VRChat, LigerXT5. You guys have a wonderful day.